Alright, what's going on? My name's Steven, and if you haven't noticed already, I hold the controller backwards. To make a long story short, my hands were just too small when I was a bit younger, so I just kind of flipped it around and no one really corrected me. Something I want to talk about is some people say, oh, why don't you just turn it around and then invert your look settings? That doesn't really work because of my muscle memory, and my fingers do completely different things than someone who uses it normally. So for example, I use my index fingers to aim instead of someone who would use their thumbs, and my thumbs control everything down here at the triggers and bumpers. So if you're holding it normally, you're using your thumbs, and as I said, your index fingers, your index and your ring finger. I don't know how that works. I'm not normal. But yeah, so that just doesn't work. The muscle memory is a lot different compared to someone who uses it normally. Alright, so now we're gonna go over my controller settings. My sensitivity is 5.3. My button layout, it's pretty much just tactical, although there's like a few buttons that are just kind of put into weird spots to cater to the way I hold it. Like for example, my melee, it's down on the D-pad, or technically up for me. I think that's the only one actually, looking at this. So basically my melee, I'm hitting this button right here, which would be technically up for me but down for you. Alright, so now I just want to take some time to talk about some of the pros and cons of the way I hold the controller. Although I'm not really certain there's any distinct positives or negatives about the way I hold it. One thing I can think of on the positive side is I'm constantly finding ways to kind of optimize the way I hold the controller. So specifically with wall bounces, I used to have to take my hand completely off that analog stick so I could do that. But now that I have paddles, I can have full control of my aim while also doing that wall bounce. And I didn't do that there because I'm still trying to break that muscle memory. I only kind of figured this out like maybe a week ago, so it's still kind of new to me. But I still have that aim now that I have that paddle. And I'm constantly finding things like that. In terms of negatives, I can't think of anything huge other than specifically I'm constantly moving my hands off the analog stick to transition from just running like this to an enemy being right there and moving my fingers in a different position. So I could just leave my index finger on the analog stick the whole time, but it doesn't really work with some movements that I have to do. Like for example, the super jump, I have to do that. If I want to reload and slide at the same time, I have to do that. I have a paddle right there that reloads, but the problem is that I have to take my whole hand off of that top. So I have to completely move it under there. So that's kind of worse than just hitting the square button. So I haven't really been using that paddle for anything specifically. As I've talked about on my TikTok, I can do mostly all the movements still. I think really the only thing I can't do is like air strafe, because I think that's a PC thing. I think you need like a program for that too, if I'm not mistaken. But other than that, I still play like anybody else with a controller. I will say my aim is not always the greatest. Like that right there. So I think I've talked about everything. So if you made it this far, thank you. I really appreciate it. Before I end this, I do want to mention that I will be streaming soon. I'm not exactly sure when. I'm still kind of waiting for some stuff and getting everything set up, so I don't have an exact date on that. But I'll be sure to put all my socials in the description so you can find me. And that pretty much wraps us up, so I hope you all have a nice day.